Okay, yeah, so some very important points made there by Afzal Khan MP Sab. You know, some clearly some work to do for us, but you know, like he mentioned, this is an opportunity for us to highlight the Kashmir issue, to take advantage and to get the empathy vote from the international community of what's going on and the violations India and India is committing in Indian held Kashmir. Okay, so obviously the point's been made that as the base camp, Azad Kashmir is the base camp for the struggle of Kashmir. This is where we need to take the lead. The base camp has to lead, and we will follow, and we will aid and support the base camp struggle in this just cause. So I'd like to ask His Excellency Sardar Masood, President of Azad Kashmir, to come forward and express his views.
First, I want to thank Mr. Fahim Kiani and Tehreek-e-Kashmir United Kingdom for organizing this webinar or press conference or whatever you call it, or a seminar. So thank you so much for your efforts. Second, I want to address all of you separately, Lord Nazir, and I want to convey my sympathies to you for the way your esteemed wife is feeling. So I was told that she's not feeling well. And I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Afzal Khan, Honorable Afzal Khan, for his elevation in the recent past. Lord Qurban Hussain, he's made immense contribution, and somebody rightly said that even in the recent past, when everybody was preoccupied with COVID-19, he continued to highlight the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. Shaista Safi, you were as articulate as ever. And finally, Altaf Bhatt, you gave a testimony from your heart, so thank you so much. And Shakil Saab, you're conducting the whole discussion very efficiently and very effectively. Now, I'm really pleased to say that you are hale and hearty, that you are all healthy, and this is a good sign. And I wish you and your family safety and robust health, because these are very difficult times for everybody. The other thought that I have in my mind, that before COVID-19, when I used to go to the United Kingdom, you would open doors for us. You would open chambers for us. And it was not just you. You were, of course, the catalyst, but there were your friends, lords and parliamentarians, who would come to these meeting rooms at the House of Commons and House of Lords. And therefore, when the United Kingdom started suffering from COVID-19, our thoughts and prayers are with them, as a matter of fact. And as I said in one of the earlier conferences, your pain, the pain of the people of the United Kingdom is our pain. And when we see you suffer, we also suffer here, because we have this bond of empathy with you, directly with our expatriate community, but also with your friends, this vast network of your friends in the United Kingdom. So all our sympathies, thoughts, and prayers are with them. This is what I want to emphasize. Second is that you, I mean, the people who are sitting here today, I know that you are the pivots or the pillars or movers or shakers on Kashmir. I'm grateful to you. I witnessed your contribution, your leadership firsthand in the United Kingdom and all over the world. So thank you so much. There was this fear that because of the world's preoccupation with COVID-19, Kashmir would be eclipsed. And this is precisely what has been happening. And India saw it as an opportunity. Of course, Kashmir was already under a lockdown. And they thought that there's another lockdown, there's another opportunity to further confine Kashmiris, to incarcerate and to brutalize them. So I can assure you, because most of you or some of you are from Azad Kashmir also, I can tell you that we have done well in Azad Kashmir as far as containment of COVID-19 is concerned. We have 51 confirmed cases out of 28 are in quarantine, and 21 have left, as a matter of fact, and there are 23 have left, as a matter of fact, and they are okay. So, and no deaths, no fatalities. So it's a good report, but we have challenges ahead, and we are bracing ourselves and preparing ourselves for meeting these challenges. Now, let me also tell you that this COVID-19 was a godsend for India, for the Bharatiya Janata Party and the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. And let me inventorize what they're doing there. First, as I mentioned, that the rest of the world has a single lockdown, and it's a medical lockdown. But the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir is under double lockdowns, twin lockdowns. And this has compounded the situation for the population in the Valley of Kashmir and Muslim districts in Jammu and some parts of Ladakh. Now, second is that when we talk about COVID-19, there are many aspects in the occupied Jammu and Kashmir. There are many aspects. One is that they are not being given proper treatment. I mean, they are not getting the kind of treatment that the people in India are receiving, treatment or care or monitoring or tracing or whatever you call it, the entire paraphernalia. That's not being made available to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Pharmacies are deserted, hospitals are overwhelmed, doctors, nurses and paramedics have protested. They do not have PPEs, these personal protection gears or equipment. And Afzal Saab was quoting a figure. Let me repeat that figure. Kashmir has one ventilator for every 71,000 people, one doctor for every 309,000 people, and one armed soldier for every 9 people. So that's the kind of monstrosity that we have in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. You would recall that after August the 5th, India had incarcerated thousands of people, and there was a report which was published by the Indian Federation of Women. This was a national NGO, and they had reported after ascertaining and establishing facts that 13,000 young boys, including children, had been incarcerated. And later on, CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, Bipin Rawat, had said that we are turning these prison houses into concentration camps. He called de-radicalization camps, because they wanted to change the mind or the mindset of these young boys and children. And these are concentration camps. Now, bulk of these children and teenagers have been transferred to the jails, most notorious jails in northern India. They are in cramped jails, or cramped prison facilities. So the threat of the spread of coronavirus there is really palpable, and it's a huge risk. And because of that, 6 international human rights organizations appealed to the government of India to monitor their situation and to release these prisoners. But India has spurned that appeal. The United Nations Secretary General, not he himself, but his spokesperson, made a statement, and I would call it an anodyne statement. He asked the Indian government to monitor the situation of the prisoners in these concentration camps or detention centers. Why would India heed such a call from the United Kingdom? I think that High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michel Bachelet, also made a statement, but that was generic and not specific to Kashmir. Now, the second thing that we're facing in the recent past is that these occupation forces are killing, gunning down, mowing down these young men in fake encounters. Yesterday, 4 boys were gunned down, and they were fake encounters. And they have intensified this campaign because under the cover of COVID-19, they can go, as somebody mentioned, they can blast their houses and kill these young men. And now their number is increasing, because previously they used to say that no, there are no killings, and in fact, most of the population is cooperating with the authorities, occupation authorities, but that's not true. They are killing people. There's a killing spree which has been revived by India. Then, of course, they're using these draconian laws. Other speakers have mentioned it, Masud Zahra, and also Gohar Gilani and others. And this is, they're being pressurized, they're being gagged and muzzled. Then, of course, is the domicile rules. These domicile rules, you would all recall that last year on August the 5th and later on October the 31st, they put into effect their decision to repeal Article 35A, which gave special privileges and rights to the people of Jammu and Kashmir in regard to permanent residence, acquisition of property, education, employment, and they were taken away from them. But early this month, what they did was that they have started these rules, and they have unveiled a plan to give Kashmiris jobs, land, and their educational seats to Hindus from all over India. And in fact, what they're doing is they're facilitating induction and import of these former civil servants, military officers, their families, their children, students who've studied for 7 years, anybody who's appeared in the IOJK, in the secondary or higher secondary examination, they would now get domicile. And this process has already started. They've started portioning out this land to different people, particularly to the goons and operators of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Large tracts of land have been given to them, and also to the ex-servicemen. Now, this is an outrage, and you know, India expects us to be silent. And that's why they have intensified this fire across the line of control, because they want to give this impression to the world that the turbulence in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir is not about the fate of the Kashmiris. It is about a potential clash between India and Pakistan, both nuclear armed states. So diverting attention from its own crimes against humanity, war crimes and genocide and ethnic cleansing. This is the technique that they're using. 3 lies. They are telling 3 lies. They're saying that Pakistan is pushing COVID-19 patients to Azad Jammu and Kashmir. False. Second, they're saying that Azad Kashmir is pushing COVID-19 patients across the line of control to India or to the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And the third is that we are sending these militants or mujahideen across the line of control. All lies. But what is happening is that while they are telling these lies, ridiculous lies, nobody is contradicting them. Nobody is contradicting. So my appeal to everybody is that every time their spokesperson tell lies, contradict them, and highlight the inconsistency in their lies, or that these falsehoods have no basis whatsoever. Now, as many speakers have mentioned, that now the conflict is not confined to the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir or the state of Jammu and Kashmir. It has expanded. It has expanded because of India's anti-Muslim policies in India itself. And therefore, this has become a civilizational clash. I mean, it is no more about Kashmiri nationalism or the kind of traditional politics that we used to have. To be a Muslim in Kashmir or in India is a crime in the eyes of Hindutva doctrinaires. So I would say 2 or 3 other things that I want to highlight, and then I would go on to the operative or practical part. India is creating this new political class in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and those who are familiar with the history, when they booted out Sheikh Abdullah back in the 1950s, they ushered in one of the cruelest leaders in Kashmir's history, and his name was Bakhshi Ghulam Muhammad. And they are reincarnating these Bakhshis. And there's a new party that has been created, Farooq Abdullah, and whose family have sold Kashmir so many times. They are being revived and reinforced. And Umar Abdullah is out. And some naive people here in Pakistan and Azad Kashmir and abroad, they applaud them. And they say that these are Kashmiri leaders. They are traitors of Kashmir. Now, but what I want to say is that a new political class is being created to terrorize the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Then I would say that this story, the story of Kashmir, is disappearing from the international media, which was so supportive to the cause of Kashmir and to the rights of Kashmiris just before COVID-19. And I see one odd reference to the Kashmir, but most of it is about COVID-19. Of course, there are stories on Afghanistan, about President Trump, but very, very few stories on Kashmir. And that's why it is important that we as stakeholders, as spokespersons, we should put Kashmir back on the global agenda. We should not let it disappear. And as it was mentioned by my previous speakers, that there is an economic crisis in Kashmir. I think it was Lord Nazir who mentioned that how they lost their crops, or there was this environment for civil disobedience vis-a-vis the Indian occupation authorities. Let me come to the operative and practical parts. What should we do? We have very limited space available, as a matter of fact, but this space is valuable. And I would say that in the United Kingdom, to our expatriates, our diaspora community, I would say that please launch an appeal to the British Parliament and to the British government. You've been doing it in the past. You will do it now also. Probably you have already started doing it. But an appeal, and this appeal from individual citizens should reach a critical point. And if we have a successful experiment in the United Kingdom, it can be replicated in Europe and United States. Second is, I don't know what the status of the question R is. As Mr. Afzal Khan mentioned that just before COVID-19 lockdown, there was this meeting scheduled towards the end of March, and now it has to be rescheduled. But we're looking forward to that special meeting of the House of Commons. Now, another channel that is available to us, and in the United Kingdom and the MPs and peers there have a special responsibility. They can communicate with the United Nations Secretary General, all the members of the Security Council, because the United Kingdom is a permanent member of the Security Council. You can communicate with your own permanent representative sitting in New York, or you can communicate to your Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister. This also communications to the Human Rights Council, Michelle Bachelet, special rapporteurs who are there, Shaista Safi and her lobbying group is familiar with the kinds of communications that are sent to special rapporteurs and special representatives and special working groups. ICRC has a responsibility. You know, the International Committee of the Red Cross, it has a special responsibility because India, by introducing domicile rules, it has violated the 4th Geneva Convention, Article 49 of the 4th Geneva Convention, ICC statute, which calls it a war crime, this forced transfer of populations, either importing them or exporting them. This is a crime against humanity. And then there are many Security Council resolutions. And the ICRC is the custodian of international humanitarian law. it is their responsibility. Communications must go to them. I'll be writing to them. I have written to them. But I think that communications coming from the United Kingdom, from influential parliamentarians, will make a difference. You're also donors. Similarly, I would say that if you could encourage some of the journalists or media persons to write to the Committee to Protect Journalists or Reporters Without Borders, that would make an impact. You know, right now, Masrat Zahra and Gohar Gilani are trending. Right now is the moment to communicate with these two organizations. I would also say that I have already talked about the media, that this story should not disappear from the media. I'll be shortly meeting foreign correspondents who are based in Islamabad. I'll be talking to them, and I'll make an appeal to them to initiate stories from Muzaffarabad or from the line of control or from Islamabad, because this is very important that we maintain focus on Kashmir. There's another point that I want to make, and I want to pay special tribute to Mr. Fahim Kiani again. He held a conference earlier. He's keeping the Kashmir issue alive. You're all keeping the issue of Kashmir alive. Let's switch during these times of lockdown. Let's switch to what we would call virtual diplomacy on Kashmir. Virtual diplomacy on Kashmir. And this, I can assure you that this would work. The last 2 points that I want to make. One is that this Arab reaction to the Hindutva violent extremism is a very momentous development. And I think that there's a way to conflate it with what is happening in Kashmir. Because what has started happening in India has been happening with much more ferocity for the past 72 years, and especially after 2016 and since August the 5th last year. So it's the same policy which was pursued there of massacres, of pogroms, of brutalization, of discrimination. So there should be a conflation of what is happening in India, to Muslims and Kashmir, so that the world becomes aware that these are two facets of the same phenomenon or same mindset. My last point is that I salute your courage, your dedication, your commitment, and let me assure you, on behalf of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, that we will not be silenced under no circumstances, and we will not relent, and we will continue our struggle undeterred.